Our first speaker today is Cynthia Novak, our premier astrologer. Today she's going to be talking about Astrology and You. She has 20 years experience in this, and I could tell you that about 3 months ago she saved me $40,000, so she's good. If you want details, ask me later. In the meantime, help me welcome Cynthia Novak.
I always have to laugh at the 20 years experience. You know, once you get to that point, you stop adding. So I did my first astrology chart in January of 1974. So that might tell you how many years. But we stopped counting. Okay, so if y'all read the quarterlies in the Holistic Networker, you know that April has had some tense, maybe turbulent aspects to it. However, I like to look at what an aspect is good for rather than the bad stuff that's coming. One of the really wonderful things in astrology, particularly I like to use the astrological constellations, which is the way they do it in India. It's called the sidereal, sider meaning star, real, zodiac. And it is actually putting the planet in the constellation rather than the Western zodiac, which uses signs. You're like, well, wait a minute. The signs and the constellations have the same names. How can they be so different? Well, they are. So if you're a tropical astrologer, or if you know your Western chart, please know that I'll give some of the planetary placements so you can go back and check your own chart to see what's being triggered. But when I'm talking about a planet being really happy, I'm talking about the constellation, not the Western sign. Are y'all okay? What's the difference? About 24 degrees. So in Western astrology, the sign Aries always begins on the spring equinox. In Vedic or sidereal astrology, it doesn't come for another 23 days. Okay? Does that mean if you're an Aries, you're suddenly a Pisces? No, I wouldn't do that to any Aries. Trust me. And the Sages who are really fearful about becoming Scorpios, nah, it doesn't happen. Because the Western model is a beautiful personality model, but what we're talking about is the strength of a planet, not your ego, okay? Okay? So, on April 28th, Venus, the planet of love and beauty and money and sweetness, enters into a wonderful, spiritual, sensitive place in the heavens. And Venus is really a sweet planet because when Venus is nice, when the love grows nicely, we tend to be instinctively more charitable to other people, even if they're one of those people. And so when we start this time period, what I want you to make note of is when Venus is really happy. So from April 27th until May 24th, Venus is in the constellation Pisces. And she loves to be in Pisces. If any of you identify yourself as being a Western Pisces, you know some of the traits are, a little otherworldly, kind of like to meander, interested in spiritual things, metaphysical things. In the Vedic model, Pisces is the final constellation, so it is the end and the beginning, looking at things in a giant circle or a giant cycle. Well, why would Venus be happy there? Because you accept that this is a giant cycle or a giant rhythm. Instead of getting all irritated because of what you heard at the water cooler on your way to your office, you realize, it's just somebody who blurted something out, and it's really not a big deal. That's why Venus in the constellation Pisces is such a nice placement, because we don't get so caught up in our own chatter. Y'all know that I've oftentimes said the biggest terrorist most of us will ever meet is right between our ears. And if you're ever hormonally challenged, you know how literal that can be. Or if you ever just get on the freeway, sometimes you know how bad it can be. But anyway, so Venus is very happy in Pisces from April 27th until May 24th. Really a nice time. If you find yourself succumbing to the internal dialogue where you are the winner of every argument, remind yourself that Venus is in a charitable place and it is in a giant cycle and you really can just shed it and overcome it. In June, just in time for many June weddings, Venus goes into Taurus on the 18th to July 12th. This is a different Venus. This is, well, okay, let's have an extra piece of cake. Venus's substance in the food realm happens to be sugar, and she really enjoys it. Her gemstone is diamonds. And so if you kind of think of the time period from June 18th to July 12th is, who cares about the diet and let's buy some jewelry? That's pretty much it. And since we're in that kind of mode, it's easy for us to be generous. If you happen to be on a budget, you may want to periodically bring in the reality police to tally up your checking account or to remind you that the debit card really works in the real world, not just in cyberspace. Also, in October 19th to November 11th, Venus is in Libra. And that's where Venus really wants to look good and she wants to redecorate her house. Okay, so the summertime Venus says, we'll just find a bigger bathing suit, one of really nice fabric. The autumn Venus says, I'm going to probably go on a diet or at least get one of those super duper, they don't call them girdles anymore, they call them shapewear. And that's the difference here. But it's really important to kind of keep your sense of humor and know that Venus is the heart planet. And it's about how we love. And this time period from April 27th to May 24th is about tuning in to the spiritual, soulful, tolerant part. Good for peace talks. I don't know how it's going to be in the global realm, but it certainly could be good in your family. You know, might be nice at the dinner table if we're all just a little sweeter to each other. May is a particularly exciting month. In astrology, a configuration that Western astrologers talk about, they look at patterns of planets. And in May, there is going to be a beautiful kite. What happens if you were to draw a kite, you would have a giant triangle, and there would be two lines in the middle, the reinforcement or the structural. This kite in May begins with Jupiter. Now, Jupiter is the good stuff. Jupiter never goes on a diet. Maybe he dances more, but he really doesn't go on a diet. He's more inclined to do something he loves more. He's the optimist, and he literally anchors the tail of the kite. In fact, for the whole month of May, Jupiter only moves 3 degrees in the heavens. So in your Vedic chart, if you happen to have a planet between 17 and 20 degrees of Libra, or between 10 to 13 of Scorpio in your Western chart, you're going to have Jupiter sit right on top of you. What should you do? Buy a lottery ticket. Check the balance in your credit card or on your checking account. Literally, you'll feel this sense of flow and abundance come through you. But he's not alone. Remember, I said he's the tail of the kite, you see. So he's really, this optimism is really good, and it's spreading things out. Good for the economy, good for spending, good for belief systems, optimism. So, does that mean a religion might get bigger? Yeah, probably all of them. Most of it is we're just kind of looking out for other people who are like us. Jupiter, when a planet appears to stop in the heavens and go backwards, the reason that it looks like that from the standpoint of the Earth is that it is actually as close to the Earth as it can actually get. And that's why it seems to move backwards and go very slowly. So if you can think of it this way, during that period of time is when he moves so slowly and he kind of beams down whatever he is more intensely. So if he's beaming it right onto something in your chart, it's really good. Just make sure you don't overspend, because Jupiter does everything too much. Maybe you would like to go and exercise more, or walk more, or think more, or do more, be generous more. All of the things come with more. In the Vedic world, Jupiter falls in a nakshatra, or a lunar mansion, called Swati, S-W-A-T-I. It's associated with the Hindu deity Saraswati, who deals with wisdom, nourishment. I mean, not just what we eat, but nourishment from everywhere. Contentment. Think about that. Wisdom, nourishment, contentment. It's what we take in, but it's also what we do with it. What we do with that little drama at the water cooler, what we do with it. Saraswati deals with intelligence. It's really not intelligent to worry so much about what's going on over here, because it's probably going to be back again next week. She deals with music, speech, poetry, and knowledge. So if you have a big benevolent planet in this kind of place, that's really good for expansion. And it'll expand anything. So if you want to sit over here and worry about what these people are doing or the latest conspiracy theory, you can spend your Jupiter abundance that way. If you want to feed the birds, or if you want to look and see what's going on in your neighborhood, or get involved in the political race, somebody you believe in, you can spend it that way. But it's yours, and there's an abundance of it. Opposite Jupiter sits Mars. Mars is the planet of action, passion, intensity. Come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. So if you're going to have this big Jupiter bank account, Mars is going to give it the edge. It's going to give it the intensity to move it out into the world and to express it. And that's a really good thing. So this kite is going to really take off. So again, if you have something at 17 to 20 degrees of Aries in your Vedic chart, or 10 to 13 of Taurus in your Western chart, you are going to feel very fierce. The next part of the big kite is Uranus. And Uranus is the restless planet of freedom. Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. If you're having a Uranus transit, you already know it, because you feel like you've got your finger in the light socket and you're buzzing most of the time. And one of the funniest things I've seen with clients, and it's more than one, is they suddenly take up knitting or crocheting. Not fine detailed stuff, big hook, big things, gotta keep their hands busy. I remember the therapist who said, you know, I ask my clients if it's okay, and when they say yes, I sit and crochet during their whole session, because it allows you to anchor your thought forms. So Uranus is in here, and Uranus is good for sudden and unexpected things. So, if we're talking about a demonstration, it'll be big. If we're talking about a belief system or meditation, it'll be big. Who sits opposite Mars in the middle of all of this stuff? Well, the other end of this happens to be Mars, Jupiter, it's right here, it's right here. Sorry, my brain just went blank. It is, anyway, my brain just went blank. Trust me. Know that there is Mercury, the communication planet, communication, commerce, ideas. Mercury's up here too. So you've got a lot of stuff going on. So if you wanted to start your own, movement about something, now's a great time to do it. Get your neighbors, come on, get everybody going. So when you think about protests, action, demonstration, religious, political parties, what do we know in May is they're going to fly, but they're probably not going to be ugly. They're just going to be big, and big ideas are going to be bounced around, and they'll probably figure out something to do. Even in Washington, they'll probably figure out something that'll work. And we have to have a little bit of optimism to put ourselves in it. I also know that the month of May is good for just about anything. I don't care whether one of these things hits your chart or not. It's good for economic prosperity. It's good for optimism. And we just want to do our part to keep things going. Gone is the time of sitting in your own little corner staring at the wall. Now is the time for movement and really listening. Why? Because the mental chatter goes down, and our willingness to sit opposite someone at whatever little peace talks or cooperative table is to really see the value. Okay? And how do you see this going? Well, I see it in my clients right now. The boss who wasn't going to give the woman the raise, although she stepped into the position, she says, I'm not going to take this position. If I have to go find another job, that's fine. I'm not going to take this. It's worth that for him. It's worth it for me. And again, this operates on many levels. And she's ready to walk. He comes back to her and says, you know, I was really wrong. This is what it would cost me to find somebody with your skill set. Can we still get you for that? Do you see what I mean? So that's that. Mars, Jupiter. That's that fierceness, the clarity, and the optimism. Was she scared? You bet. You bet. Anyway, so May keeps a lot of that going. June is a more restless month. Mars is a planet of action. Saturn's a planet of frustration. Mars kind of moves in there. He just sort of gets on there, and they're irritated and frustrated, and you're going to see it as being really volatile. Unfortunately, it's going to be really volatile in a lot of high-profile people. George W., the new president of Iran, Hillary Clinton, I mean, just about anybody who's up there in the news, you're going to see some of this volatility. If you follow the local Texas gubernatorial race, Rick Perry is going to probably be in a hot spot. There may be something that comes down in June that makes him really unsettled. Okay? Could be some of those independents running against him, and we'll talk about them if we have a minute. Uranus is the revolutionary, and when the revolutionary energy comes in, it simply wants change for more freedom. It always begs the question of, what is freedom for you? What is freedom? So in your Vedic chart, if you happen to have a planet near 20 degrees of Aquarius, or in your Western chart, if you have it at 15 degrees of Pisces, you're feeling the buzz. But what is freedom to you? Most of us, freedom is being free of some of that compulsive chatter. So when we get into the month of June, we look around and we see all the spin and we see all the buzz, and we ask, what really is freedom? What do these folks want? And it's up to us to ask the question, what will you build? What will you build? Not, can you destroy it? It's easy for me to say, well, this is really wrong. I really don't like the IRS, but what will I build in its place? How will I build it? And that's the important question. July is a really cool month. Jupiter's going to slow down. Is stopping and going backwards now. And in July, he literally stops and he starts to move forward. Right on July 4th and 5th. Good for 4th of July parties, good for lots of fireworks, but it's also really good to watch in the month of July and see who are going to be the political candidates that are going to gain energy and momentum. Interesting, old Kinky Friedman with his George Burns cigar and his Mark Twain wit has several planets right there. So I don't know where he's going to go, and I don't know how many people will vote for Kinky, but it'll be really interesting to see what he's doing in the month of July. August, there's still some of the edginess from June and July, and there is sort of, it kind of re-intensifies some of the conflict that showed up in June. I think it's really interesting that not only does the new president of Iran have a difficult Mars that hits George W.'s chart, it also exactly nails Hillary Clinton's chart. What's she going to do about it? I don't know, but let me tell you, she does not have a wimpy chart. So it'll be interesting to see this summer if she is asked, what will you do with this situation? What would you do with this situation? Maybe we'll get a glimpse of it if you're a West Wing fan tonight. But anyway, in the Texas governor's race, really heats up in August. If you like Carol Keaton Strayhorn, you know, she's running as one tough grandma. The woman has an enormously strong but tempered Mars. No big surprise. What's Mars good for? Action. Mars is good for fighting, but hers is exalted. So it kind of really knows how to do it. And her chart gets really triggered in August. So I don't think she's going away. And if for some reason she doesn't make it to the ballot, you're going to see her impact and her influence coming in strongly at that time. September, the first week, is still a little volatile. You want to ask yourself, what are you thinking about? Pluto appears to stop in the heavens. And strangely enough, political hotspots around the world, when Pluto appears to stop the week before and a week or so after, tend to be particularly difficult or disruptive. Okay? So do your part to try to keep your world peaceful around you. What is a Pluto transit like? It's kind of like a giant colonic. You know, just kind of, you know, it's September, what can I say? So there's going to be a lot of old stuff that needs to go, and it'll be interesting to watch it play out. So if you have a planet near 0 degrees Sagittarius in your Vedic chart, or 23 in your Western chart, you're going to really feel it move, so to speak. This particular part in the heavens, the ancient Hindus called the galactic center, or that place where universal knowledge spills down to us. Well, it's all knowledge, so the challenge is to sort through it, to sort of sift through the spin. Finally, in October, you have to ask yourself, what did I start in January of 2006? Because that's where Jupiter is again. He's like, okay, those things that look like a really good idea, big resolutions and things like that we got moving in January, all of a sudden, those plans are back front and center. So whether it was, you know, the ab buster or the diet or the decision to get involved in something, it comes back around and we get a New Year's resolution time with quick success right around the October time. Excuse me, ladies. Oh, thanks. Anyway, so as we move through this, I think, you know, I have a sense of humor, but I think one of the most fun things to watch is going to be the Texas governor's race. And I hope y'all don't take it too seriously. I hope you can enjoy it with me, because these characters that are coming forward, I don't know of any other state that we could have this sampling, so to speak. And it's surprising me to see who's getting the change transits and who's getting the luck transits. But I do know that it will be colorful.